Hello and welcome to Cornish Walking Trails. Today we're here at Kynance Cove.
Paradise private beach.
We've walked here today from the Lizard Windmill nearby, and we're on the trail of a notorious Windmill Gang. In our video today we will tell you the story of the Windmill Gang starting in 1820 with the murder of a local farmer. After exploring the windmill, we'll walk to Kynance and finally pick up the southwest coast path to Gew Grays to finish our story. Our walk today starts at the Lizard Windmill, the hideout of the Windmill Gang. It can be found near Lizard Village at Windmill Farm Nature Reserve, which is owned and managed by Cornwall Wildlife Trust. So the Trust has put a fantastic information centre just in here. And I want to come in here just to show you on their map where we're trying to get to. In the information centre is this wonderful aerial style map. The area marked in purple is actually the reserve, the nature reserve, and we are here. We're going to come out of the windmill and we're going to head across these fields. This is where the pond is, and we're going to pick up a boardwalk that takes us out towards Bredannock. This is a public footpath that we're going to follow and then head down to Kynance Cove.
At the turn of the 19th century, the Lizard Peninsula, 10 miles from Helston, the nearest market town, was even more remote than anywhere on Bodmin Moor.
Without the permanent presence of civil authority, the downlands of this southern tip of the county were the scene of much criminal activity. In 1820, a local farmer was murdered on his way home to Kynance from Helston Market.
We found an account of this in a book called A Week at the Lizard by the Reverend C.A. Johns, published in 1848. So our story starts in 1820. So two men happened to hear that a certain farmer would return from Helston one market day, having on his person a considerable sum of money, and waylaid him in a lonely part of the road leading to Mullion. Just at the time that they expected their victim, someone passed by on horseback, at whom they fired, but missed their mark. Shortly afterwards, the real victim rode up. One of them fired again. The shot took effect, but it was not without some resistance that he was dragged from his horse. The villains made off, secure, that, as they thought, from detection. The wounded man, however, was soon found and conveyed to a neighbouring house, where he expired the same night, but not before he had made deposition that he did not know his murderers, but that his horse had stepped on the foot of one of them in the struggle. This simple circumstance led to their discovery. They were apprehended and forfeited their lives on the scaffold. And that's where Reverend Johns then leaves this story. But we can pick this up further and actually give you some names of the two accomplices.
Giving away all the secrets now. What have you got in your bag?
Oh, this is a somewhat delicate pamphlet, I guess you'd call it. So it's called Chips and Shavings from a Cornish Block. And it's the most curious set of items, really. I don't know what you'd even call them. They're gathered together by somebody called Edith Martin, who I believe was in the WI. And she's got all sorts of different things about, did you know about Cornwall? And one of them, list of executions in Cornwall from 1785 to 1882, compiled by the late John Burton, the old curiosity shop in Falmouth. Now we know where that is. If you've watched our Falmouth video, you too know where that is. It's Specsavers in Falmouth now. Anyway, the date that we're looking at is 1821 here. So 1821, there's two executions on the 2nd of April. One is John Barnicott and one is John Thompson. And they were aged 24 and 17. And the reason they were executed was the murder of William Hancock at Curie. So we just thought it'd be interesting to show you that there's quite a lot of evidence around in Cornwall to back up everything that the Reverend Johns was saying. It works, it marries up.
Sarah,
Yeah.
I think you should have gone to Specsavers.
Yes, so should I. It's Boots Optician, isn't it? It's not Specsavers.
Other chemists are available. They do that.
Opticians!
Eh?
Opticians!
Oh, I got me at it now.
The first recorded evidence of a windmill at this site dates back to 1695, but by the 1820s it had fallen into disrepair and was the hideout of the notorious Windmill Gang. They stole sheep and butchered them here at the windmill, and when Oliver Tucker informed the authorities, they murdered him. He is said to haunt the area close to the windmill. Oh, wow. Oh, look at that. Wow. This is an amazing transformation of the windmill. So the original purpose of this obviously was to grind grains to give flour to the local community. Now the walls have been repaired. They were made mostly from serpentine, which is a local rock from here, so they didn't have to move it very far to make this construction. Now you have a cantilevered staircase on a central spiral. This holds up the staircase and it also holds up the roof. So it's amazing. You can go up there, you've got a 360-degree panorama because all of it is supported by this central pedestal, I guess you call it. It's like a parasol. It's amazing. I love it.
Fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's the other door.
Yeah, so it had originally had two doors, one on each side, so whichever way the sails were set, the miller could get in and out without worrying about the sails.
Without having his head clobbered.
Yeah. Why do I keep thinking of Windy Miller?
I don't want to know. I'm looking up here. The architecture in here is stunning. This today is primarily used as a birdwatch hide. It gives you a fantastic view all across the downs down here, out to Goonhilly, and all the way around Kynance area. And it now belongs to Cornwall Wildlife Trust.
Is it me or is this thing sway?
I was thinking that you were actually on the staircase a moment ago. Perhaps it's this umbrella roof design that catches a bit of the wind and makes it move ever so slightly. Today it's all about wildlife. It is about viewing at a respectful distance. It's about not intruding on the reserve that they've built up here, and it is a brilliant place to come and watch nature. But with its past, would you dare to come in here at night? Would you, Andrew?
I might do, if there's a video in it.
You're on your own, mate. Now comes the bit I don't like. I've got to look down, and I know it's safe, but it does feel as though there's nothing underneath. No, don't do that! I can't move, 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 I can't look. Have you stopped doing that?
Yeah.
No! Stop it! I don't like you. Ah, I've looked down. Oh, I feel giddy now. Okay, getting close to the bottom now. Let's go. Right, I'm on ground. Yes!
You survived.
I don't know why that makes me feel so funny. It's a beautiful structure from down here. It's just when I'm up there, my brain just says, oh, you're a long way from the floor. It's mad. The Wildlife Trust here has put this fantastic notice board, Lizard Windmill, the history of the windmill tower, shaped by the winds of change. Now the bit that we're interested in today specifically is about the Windmill Gang, and it tells us this here.
In 1829, the theft of 4 rams led to the eventual arrest of Alexander Hocking and James Jose. Hocking, a butcher, admitted to having been employed by the gang to kill and cut up sheep at the windmill, from where the meat and the wool were taken to a hideout on the coast near Kynance, still known as Sheep Stealers' Cave, before being shipped to Falmouth and sold. Hocking hinted at the involvement of Stephen Jose and William Harris, who subsequently drowned off Kynance Cove whilst trying to swim away from the pursuing authorities.
We can give you a bit more detail with our older books and support that exactly as they say. The only difference being, did they get drowned off Kynance or was it somewhere else?
Ooh, sounds like you know a little bit more.
Yeah. We'll tell you as we go, come on.
So it's alleged, Sarah, this first field that you walk into, this is the closest one to the windmill, this is the field which is called Oliver Tucker's grave, and this is supposedly the field that his body was buried in an unknown grave, close to the windmill, murdered by the Windmill Gang.
So some people, some of the locals still won't come in this field because they feel it's haunted by his poor soul. Wow, we've got to go down there. Look at that. How do we get in there? Oh, I'm coming. So just to let you into a little secret, I'll get up here first. We came down in the summer researching this and it was really overgrown and it didn't look as though the whole reserve had much of attention. But now we've got some new posts and I guess they've assessed all of this boardwalk for safety. We've got some new posts, yes, they've shored it all up. It was feeling a bit rickety when we came down in the summer. We were doubting whether or not we should do a video encouraging people to be walking on it, but it looks fine now. They've done a lot of work. So let's follow this fantastic route. It takes you all the way out to the Downs. Isn't it glorious? It feels like a mysterious little fairy hollow. So we're going to head down as far as we can towards Kynance. We want to follow the route that the last two gang members took as they fled towards the coast. It's not possible to know their exact route, but our book says they were secreted in the neighbourhood and compelled by hunger to appear near the village. The Windmill notice board says they went to Kynance and drowned.
Walking the other day, I was really tired, so I flagged down this lorry and he was carrying a load of mushrooms in the lorry.
Okay.
I said, mate, I'm really tired. I said, could you give me a lift home?
I haven't got much room.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. Oh, did you know that?
I got that.
You did?
Yes! Look at them all. They're everywhere. Watch where you're treading here. There's not much room.
That's really good, isn't it? Do you enjoy being out with a fun guy?
Ah, that old one. If you've never noticed the windmill before, after seeing this video, the next time you come down to this area, you'll see it every time you look. You can't miss it.
So although that was operating mainly as a windmill, I think back in the 17th century was when it was
That's
first
where it's
active,
thought to be
wasn't it?
constructed, isn't it?
Yeah. But over the years it obviously fell into deterioration. It obviously wasn't used for a while because that Windmill Gang were using it to slaughter these sheep, weren't they?
Yeah.
But they wanted to keep the structure of the windmill intact because it was a prominent landmark you could see at the sea.
Oh, is that why it didn't completely disappear?
Yeah, for navigational charts and things like that. It was really important that they kept the structure of the windmill.
Okay, that explains it then. So we've just followed the valley down from the windmill and Kynance is dead ahead.
Yeah, it should literally come into view as we just need to
Crest
go a little bit
the
more
cliff
and then we
path.
should have our first view of Kynance.
I think we should join up with the high tide route, is it?
Yeah,
comes
there's
down
two
from the
routes
car
into
park.
Kynance Cove. I haven't checked the tide times today either, so I don't know if we can get down on the beach or not.
Oh, well, a day like this it's bound to be busy too. The Kynance came to prominence when Queen Victoria and Prince Albert paid a visit, and that was really the beginning of the Victorians' interest in Cornwall. They loved the remoteness and they also were astonished by its natural beauty. Tennyson wrote a poem, they came down, they painted it, and that's why we have this cluster of books that we use on our channel. Wilkie Collins, the one we're using today by Reverend Johns. And then you've got Blight's as well, he was a local lad. So they all kind of did this tour of Cornwall, popularised by the Queen. Wow, it's spectacular. I've seen this place a few times now, but it still takes your breath away. Amazing.
In that little book you've got, that Reverend John's book, A Week at the Lizard, I think one of the plates that they've used, one of the illustration plates, I think the view might have been here.
I think you might be right.
So you can see the old mill building, which is now that white abandoned building down there.
So not an old photograph today, I'm not quite sure if the wind will allow me to do this, but that is a sketch, an etching and a plate, and it is pretty much here. Goodness me, very little has changed. Even got the old mill building, like Andrew said, on the right hand side. Because we can't come to Kynance without having a little stroll down on that cove. So let's make our way down there now. Fancy trying to swim out against those waves.
It's quite rough today, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a nice day. So we're here in Kynance Cove, Andrew.
Beautiful.
Do you think they could have maybe swum out of here or escaped?
Well, they were obviously being pursued, weren't they, by the constables and locals. So
Yeah.
they must have been quite tired, but I reckon they could have escaped from here, because if it was me, I would have headed off one of the islands there and tried to clamber up onto it and have a bit of a rest.
Yeah, I reckon you would have done.
Yeah.
The notice board back at the Windmill says that they drowned here, but our book says that they actually went off Good Grays and not Kynance. So we're going to head over there now and have a look at Good Grays and see how the land lies there.
Good idea.
So we're now here at Kynance, having walked down from Lizard Downs, and we are trying, I don't know how successfully, to find Smugglers Cave between Kynance and Rill Head. That headland over there is Rill Head. So why is this significant in our story? This is supposedly where sheep stealers or Smugglers Cave was, and there is a fantastic account in here of the Reverend Johns finding it and going in there. So let me just tell you that. So Reverend Johns writes, somewhat halfway between Kynance and the Rill is an almost inaccessible cave which was formerly frequented by a desperate gang of sheep stealers. Now they tried to get to this cave. We were obliged to scramble down the face of the cliff, which was composed principally of large loose stones, affording a very insecure footing. And when we arrived at the bottom, he led me a short distance over the same kind of ground, until suddenly stopping, he said, "You are now within 6 feet of the mouth of the cave." He then pointed out to me behind a mass of rock and as I felt no inclination to accept his polite offer of going first, he lay down flat with his hands above his head and wriggled himself in. This uncomfortable posture, I found, when I proceeded to follow him, was quite necessary, the aperture being too narrow to allow the arms to remain by the sides, and too low to admit a kneeling posture. After a few feet of this serpent-like progress, I was enabled to stand up, and found myself, to my great astonishment, in a lofty and extensive cavern, perfectly well lit by the rays of sun, which was streaming in through narrow fissures extending for many feet in the roof of the cave. We found no relics of the former inhabitants, and I, having heard of the desperate character of the late tenants, did not care to explore the recesses. When we had seen enough, we withdrew, assuming the same ignoble posture as when we entered, and I felt not at all sorry that it was now my turn to go first. He does end up by saying he could never ever find that cave again. In Reverend John's book, he records the men drowning off Gew Grey, so we're going to head there now to see if you can get down to the cove and what it's like.
The book we're using today, Sarah, was written by Reverend C.A. Johns.
Yes.
He's got quite an interesting history.
Oh, okay.
So he was born in 1811.
Yeah.
And he was actually born into quite a wealthy family. His father was a banker, but apparently there was a banking crash in the early part of that 19th century, and there was a lot of runs on banks, and he went from being in a family which was quite wealthy to basically facing poverty.
Relative poverty.
Yeah, so he ended up moving into teaching, and I think by the 1830s he became a reverend.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no.
Where?
No, early 1840s, that's right.
Okay.
I think it was Bideford in Devon.
Oh,
Yeah.
Devon.
But his father was from Helston, and he wasn't actually a reverend, although he kept the title. I think he felt it wasn't for him, and he moved back to Helston and continued with teaching. And he eventually, as well as doing his writing, he was well known for being a botanist. But what is interesting, I think, is in this book there's lots and lots of little illustrations.
Yeah, they're beautifully done,
some
aren't
of
they?
them, obviously because he was a botanist, a lot of them are to do with the fauna and flora that you find here. Now, do you know that those little illustrations, they weren't actually done by him?
Okay.
So they were actually copies of watercolours, and they were done by a lady. She was called Emily Stackhouse. But back in the day, when you look at the illustrations, she just put an initial on of ES because she wasn't allowed to be credited. But her watercolours are beautiful, and they were actually wood chips or wood carvings, I think, which were then turned into illustrations, like plates for the book.
Right.
So
we've got, is that just the botany ones? Because there's one up here,
so
isn't there?
she did all the botany
Looking
ones.
back at
I don't know who
Kynance.
actually did the ones with the views.
So we're just looking back at Kynance now, and we're kind of halfway between Kynance and Real Point. Looking back, there's loads of like coastal erosion that's created lots of loose stones that match his description of the time. Obviously we're 170 years later, so looking at the amount of erosion that's happened recently, the likelihood of ever seeing that cave again is remote, especially when you think there was already fissures in the cave roof, so probably collapsed long ago.
I mean, you're really high up here as well, isn't it? You think one loose step, if you're trying to get down there, you'd be over the edge, wouldn't you?
Yeah, totally.
It's really windy here. It's always windy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always windy here.
Wow. No wonder they couldn't find it.
Fabulous view there.
Yeah. So behind me is where we were earlier on, Kynance Cove, and this stretch of coast here, somewhere along here, is this mystery cave that the sheep stealers were using. And in this book we're using today, A Week at the Lizard, it says, some fishermen, it is said, who were passing by in their boat saw a fox disappear in a mysterious manner and had the curiosity to land and see what had become of it. Discovering the narrow entrance to the cave, they went in and found parings of the levers stolen from the village, some sheep's skins and a quantity of mutton bones, which gave conclusive evidence of the character of its late occupants.
That's brilliant, isn't it? So
Yeah.
a fox disappeared because he knew there was mutton bones in there.
Yeah. Unless he wanted a new pair of shoes.
What I like today is this kind of arch that you can see that's naturally formed. So that at one point must have been a cave, maybe. And you get
I mean, as you said, so many years have gone by. You know, it's bound to have altered slightly, isn't it? But
yeah.
The rocks here, I mean, you know, these are solid rocks, isn't there? There's not
there is a plate in that book.
Coastal erosion here.
Ah, yes. There it goes. There's the coastal erosion bombshell.
Coastal erosion is a thing.
So you found it. So it says Kynance from the Rill, and there you have the actual islands of Kynance and that beautiful etching going all the way out to Lizard Point. So that's what it looked like then. If you take the book away, this is what it looks like today. I think it would take some close studying and observation to kind of compare and contrast those headlands.
Look, there's the fox.
You found it! You found Sheepstealer's Cave. Oh dear. Right, are we going to make our way to Gew Grays now?
We need to get to Gew Grays to conclude our story.
We do. You can't tear yourself away, can you?
And why not?
No, it's beautiful. Onwards to Gew Grays. The evening approaches too quickly. It's October and the warmth and the sunshine has kind of lulled us into a false sense of security. So we haven't actually got that many daylight hours left. It's getting dark at about 6 at the moment. So we need to get to Gew Grays and back again, and then back to the windmill. Gosh, this is a long walk. And you can still see the windmill. It's like the centre of a wheel. And all these points are the spokes going around it. Amazing. Andrew keeps up a hell of a pace, and a walk turns into some stank.
Wait, I think it's good to get a bit of exercise in, isn't it?
I end up blowing.
Proper walk.
It's not fair, see, because I have a sit down all day job and he has a walking around all day job. So he's quite fit and I'm not.
I can hear a chuff. That's a chuff. That is a chuff.
Oh, it's a
right
chuff.
in front of us.
It's a chuff. We were only saying this morning that we never see any chuffs anymore, and there's two.
Can you hear it?
It's a pair.
Look at that.
Let's get the camera out. Oh, it's out.
Can hear the call on it. There's two of them.
I remember chatting to one of the wardens that mans the hut down at the most southerly point in the Lizard, and they were explaining that chuffs like dung. They particularly like cow dung, and cows are allowed to roam wild here. It's like their McDonald's, apparently, full of worms. I guess each to their own. There they are. I guess they're a pair. I'm doing a lot of guessing, but I'm excited. It's lovely to see. The chuff has a long association with Cornwall. A Cornish legend says that King Arthur transformed into a chuff when he died, with the red feet and beak representing his violent and bloody end. Well, I think these two certainly want to be on camera. They're now following us. One's over here and one's further over to the right. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to frighten you, but my path is this way. You beautiful bird. Oh. Okay, we'll leave them eat their dinner and quietly. Oh, he's gone now. Oh, he's flying ahead of me again. Well, that's no good, is it? Oh, and here comes the other one. Wow! 6 foot away from me, literally. Oh, beautiful. Ah.
Oh, it's made my day.
And mine. I love seeing a chuff. I so love seeing a chuff. I'm chuffed I saw a chuff.
Yeah,
I got it in before
I let you
you.
get it in before me. But they're really difficult to film because they're quite timid, really,
Yes.
aren't they? But we haven't really got the right camera equipment to try and film it. I don't know if it's come out or not, but you certainly got the sound of it there.
Yeah.
They got a unique call,
That
and there are a pair of them there as well, so they're obviously chatting to each other.
Yeah, they kind of talk to each other as they're digging through a pile of dung, don't they? And they drift apart, and as they can't see each other anymore, they call instead.
He was tucking into that dung.
I know.
Good stuff. A dog eats it as well, doesn't he?
Yeah. Why?
Hey.
Called me out here.
Yeah, so I didn't think there was a beach here.
No, I
This is
didn't
Dewgraves.
either.
And if you look down there, there is a sandy beach.
Oh, I don't want to look down there. It's really, really high.
Right,
I'm
yeah.
getting worse as I get older. I tell you. Oh my goodness, there is a
But I
cove.
can see that there is a pathway that leads down.
Yeah.
Now,
I think
obviously-
there's a flaw in your plan there because I think there's quite a high cliff and a waterfall from memory.
But the important thing is there is a beach.
Okay, well that helps to tell the story. Should we finish the story here? Let's get the book out. Let's get the book out and finish the story here. I've been overruled after some debate, not much at all, just being told actually. We're going down here to do it. We're going as close as we can get. Great, he's flown across the valley. So that means he will now come back away from the edge. This is definitely a beautiful spot.
Put the book again.
Yeah, just to round up our story. So we're talking about sheep rustling, murdering, all happening around the windmill. And there was 4 rams stolen from a farmer, which then led to the arrest of 3 of the gang, who then squealed on 2 remaining gang members. Now, they then went off across the downs, and they were hotly pursued by the locals and the constable. So we pick it up at that point. And it says here, Dewgraves is connected in a melancholy way with the last deed of daring perpetrated by the robbers who formerly frequented the sheep stealers' cave near Kynance. The constables who were on watch gave them chase and cut them off from their retreat. Being hotly pursued across the Lizard Downs, they made for Dewgraves, where no doubt they hoped to secrete themselves, but were so closely pressed that they could only dash into the water and swim for their lives in the forlorn hope, it is supposed, of gaining their old haunt. Their pursuers had nothing to do but stand still and watch. They soon saw one of the fugitives, who was still swimming outwards, sink. The other then turned and attempted to swim back, but he had become so exhausted that he too sank before he had returned many yards. The circumstances connected with this sad affair are well known in the neighbourhood, and as it happened less than 30 years ago, there are many persons yet alive who are acquainted with the parties concerned. So we followed the story from the windmill to Kynance, trying to give you an indication of where the cave may have once been, to here, Dewgraves, where the men went out to sea and were never seen again. Their bodies were never recovered, so nobody knows if they actually survived this event. It also contradicts what the Wildlife Trust has on their board. So I wonder, is the account in Johns's book accurate because it's contemporary, or is there something else that they've picked up on that maybe we haven't found? Who knows? So we're at Goo Graves. We're going to finish the video here. We're going to walk back. We won't film that. Just going to sum it up. We've had a fantastic day starting at the windmill.
Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video and thanks for joining us today. But the windmill, the nature reserve, it's wonderful. You get a chance to go and have an explore. We've obviously wandered down to Kynance, which is incredible anyway.
Beautiful.
And we've ended up here at Goo Graves. And
all on the trail of a notorious windmill gang from the 1820s. I really enjoyed today's video.
Yeah, and I think having that book from 1848 as our companion today has helped probably tell a little bit more of that story.
Back it all up a bit.
So thank you for joining us today. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
To help us grow our channel, please subscribe and consider supporting us on Patreon.